It's Wednesday, May 25th, a little after 8 a.m. We will call the meeting to order. We'll go straight to public comment. This agenda item provides an opportunity for citizens to address the board of directors on agenda items or other matters related to NTMC. Each speaker will be given a total of 3 minutes to address any items. Anyone wishing to speak will be courteous and cordial. Any person who wishes to address the board of directors regarding any item may do so either by completing a request to speaker card or in the DCTA administrative office prior to the meeting and participation virtually by utilizing the raise hand function and ensuring when called upon your camera is turned on and your name displayed. The board of directors are not permitted to take action on any subject raised by a speaker during citizen comments. However, the board of directors may have the item placed on a future agenda for action, refer the item to NTC officers for further study or action, briefly state existing NTMC policy, or provide a brief statement for factual information in response to an inquiry. Did we have any speaker cards or anyone with their hand raised?
No, sir.
Okay, hearing no one needs to speak, we'll move straight into the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, I'm gonna actually remove item B from the consent agenda, and we're gonna go over that separately. But on item 1A, we would consider a motion to approve the minutes of the April 27th, 2022 meeting.
Move to approve. Richard Hayes.
We have a motion by Richard Hayes to approve. Do I hear a second?
Second, David Gaines.
We have a second by Mr. Gaines. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say no. Motion approves. Thank you very much. On the consent agenda item B, I simply wanted to pull that off of the consent agenda so we give an opportunity for Mr. Pearl to kind of go over this issue since Mr. Gaines and Mr. Christina were not on the board when the board actually approved this item or approved us spending this money. And I'd like for Mr. Pearl to give them the opportunity to understand that and ask any questions that you might feel pertinent that you don't understand this, so he can explain this to you. Mr. Pearl?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On item B, it is for a budget revision, and this is for vaccination pay. And the vaccination pay it's twofold. So if there's unvaccinated personnel, they have the ability to take time off and pay time to get vaccinated, and then also to get the booster shots. With the vaccinated, it does allow for time for them if they do become ill due to COVID, that it does cover their pay up to 40 hours. And it allows additional pay time for them to receive booster shots. So that additional cost, and this was something that was done prior to me getting here and already in play and in motion. This has been taken to the DCTA board as well. And this is the total amount is $70,000, and that's under the board budget transfer revision request for $70,922. And that's a transfer in from DCTA to the operating budget for NTMC. So it does cover, it does go to the wage line item, and it does allow for some more flexibility in the negotiation with the ATU to allow their membership to have additional time and compensate them for leave pay as well as getting vaccinated. Any questions?
It's Richard Hayes. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
We're budgeting or allocating dollars in the budget for this. You know, it'll be unknown, I guess, how many of those employees will be affected or the amount of the cost. So did we have a similar number for last year that was built into the budget? I do not recall. And then if we did, how much of that did we actually utilizing?
I don't know that we did. Cameron, if Cameron She would know more about that. I would defer to Cameron on that, but I don't believe that there was.
Right, I am online.
Can
Let me
you
get my
elaborate,
camera
Cameron?
up. So I do apologize. So are you asking how much was utilized for the FFCRA pay regarding when we did it back in 2022, when we were utilizing the FFCRA pay?
Okay, I'm not sure about FCRA. We're having a budget revision here for COVID leave and vacation pay initiative.
Mhm,
Question
correct.
is, have a number for last year's budget? And if so, how much of that did we use?
As far as for COVID leave, we did not have it in place. And for vaccination pay, we did not have that in place. This revision is effective January 25th, 2022 until December 31st, 2022. We didn't cover employees with COVID leave or FFCRA pay, which was covered, was a regulation back in 2020. From January 1st of 2021 through current day, except for when this is going to be taken in effect, NTMC employees use their vacation or sick time or PTO should they have been tested and came out positive for COVID. I may not be answering your question as you want me to.
Well, I'm just trying to get a sense for dollars to dollars. So the FCRA was the, Coronavirus Response Act.
Yes.
So and that's no longer required by law. So
Right.
Did we have dollars allocated to that? So how much did we end up spending is what I'm trying to compare as compared to what are we allocating this time and what might we spend?
I can get you that information, but I think DCTA has that information because I think that they were coding it to a certain allocation, but I can get with DCTA to get those numbers for you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Anyone else have any questions on this?
Yeah, this is Paul Christina. I have a question. Cameron, thanks for being here this morning. It's good to see you. Is this benefit able to be gained retroactively? For instance, if someone would have taken advantage of this, had this budget been in place before this approval, can they come back and say, I took COVID leave, therefore I should be paid for time off in February or something like that? Or is it only moving forward?
No, it is retroactive till January 25th, 2022. That's when NTMC and the ATU had the meeting to do the tentative negotiation. And then once it was approved through the NTMC and DCTA board, it is retroactive to 1/25 of 2022.
Okay, and so how many requests do you have in the queue already for this, and how are those requests? Who is the approver of those requests?
HR is the approver of those requests because they do have to provide pertinent information as outlined within our policy. As of right now, we don't have anybody who has to be retro paid for COVID leave or vaccination pay as of right now.
Okay, thank you.
This is David Gaines. Are you currently, as we're going through the budget process, contemplating this continuing in the next fiscal year?
We do not have that, excuse me, we don't have that in the budget for next year. This was a negotiation, as Cameron had mentioned, between NTMC and the ATU, and there have been no further discussions beyond this.
Maurice, hold on one second. There is going to be the first, if we're talking about fiscal year, the company's fiscal year, there will be it'll be put in the fiscal year. The agreement is for a calendar year. So January 25th through the 31st of December, which falls into the 2023 fiscal year.
Thank you.
But that's already into the budget currently, correct?
Yes, we have placed it in the budget for the fiscal 22-23 fiscal year. Yes.
Great, okay. Do you want to have any other further questions on this item? I think you can see why I did want to pull this item, because there were a lot of questions that hadn't been answered, especially with the new board members. So I wanted to make sure everybody understood that. With that being said, there is a consider resolution of the Board of Directors of North Texas Mobility Corporation approving fiscal year 2022 budget revision to 2022-N002 and revised operating budget. Do we entertain a motion on that item?
David Gaines, so moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Gaines to approve,
Second by Hayes.
and a second by Mr. Hayes. Be all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Motion approved. Thank you, ladies, and thank you very much, Cameron. Appreciate your help and assistance on that, ma'am. Okay, it takes us to item 2, information reports, monthly financial statements. Does anybody have any questions? These statements are basically just statements for us to review and go over. And if you do have any questions or anything on those items, we'll be glad, Mr. Pearl will be glad to answer those for you. Does anybody have any questions on those items that were presented? Hearing none, we'll move directly into the regular agenda. Regular agenda is item A, presentation of general manager's monthly report. Mr. Pearl, you want to begin with that, please, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me. Under item number 1, the 2022 summer service schedule. The schedule did start on May 15th, and for the summer schedule, and there were no major service adjustments. UNT service was adjusted to the summer service levels, and Access continues to operate at the same service level as they have on a continuous basis due to the ridership there. Number 2, NTMC employee positions. We have filled several positions recently within the past. All right, I did not have my microphone. The NTMC employee positions, we have filled several positions recently within the past 3 weeks. We've had actually 6 positions, not 5. We've hired an MSR, lead dispatcher, a dispatcher, safety coordinator, service attendant, and a CDL bus operator. And they did recently start. And now the major focus, we have a customer service manager, as well as the custodian to hire, and then the full concentration will be on bus operators and filling that, making sure we have a full complement of bus operators going into August. So I have to applaud the efforts of our HR department, and as well as all personnel involved with the hiring process and interview process, because they've been doing a heck of a job getting these positions filled. It has been a priority for us, as I stated in prior meetings, and this shows the commitment by personnel to get the job done. So very pleased with who we've hired and recently, and look forward to good things to come from the personnel. Number 3, the National Transit Database agency comparison. Just wanted to provide you with some information. It's information that I'm aware of, that the board might not be aware of. So if there's something out there that I can share with the board and let them know, then I will do that. And that's just part of making sure that you have all the information in front of you. I do not have a comparison, but I wanted to put that as a placeholder, and then just provide some information on the National Transit Database. And it does it's a reporting function. So And this was created back in 1974, so it's been a few years ago. But I'll just read some of this here. That the National Transit Database was set up to be a repository of data about the financial, operating, and asset conditions of American transit systems. The NTD records the financial, operating, and asset condition of transit systems, helping to keep track of the industry and provide public information and statistics. And it's just a wealth of information. And in the next board meeting, I'll provide some NTD data for DC. It'll be DC under DCTA, but it'll be under other transit systems that'll be in comparison, so you kind of get a good feel for where we're at. And I'll just highlight some of the areas in the NTD comparison with other transit systems, so you have that information. But it is very useful, and I always like going there and looking at transit systems. But it's very helpful. So again, at the next board meeting, I'll provide some additional information on that.
Okay.
Service metrics for the month of April 2022: Connect ridership 9,283, UNT 108,204, Access 2,287, and below that is a comparison from month to month for January 2021 to January of 22. And I don't have to go through all of this, but we'll just point out, for example, a month. If we go to February, we can see February of 2021, 25,418. Obviously, we were in the height of COVID, so ridership was very low at that time. And compared to February of 2022, 102,000. Looks like 98. That is small print, so if I messed that up, I apologize. And then we have the difference in the ridership percent deviation and the passenger per revenue hour. With Connect for 2021 in February, 13,469, and February of 22, 8,940. And that difference is 4,529, 34% decrease, and 5.1 passenger per revenue hour. Access for February of 21, 1458, and February of 22, 1654. Ridership increase of 196, a 13% increase, and 3.37 passenger per revenue hour. And you can go through, look at January, March, and April just as a comparison between the months. And this just will give you overall year-to-year, month-to-month comparison. And then what I'll have for next month is the overall comparison year-to-year. So that'll give you ridership information, and then the delta and the percent deviation. So you have that in front of you as well. Any questions about that section?
I think this is great. I think this is kind of something we've been needing, and I appreciate this. This looks good and give us a comparison as to how things were and how things are moving, especially since we had the COVID operation. I think we're kind of not back to normal, but getting closer back. So to give us some comparisons there. Appreciate that.
Yes, sir. And
I would-
I'm sorry.
I was just gonna, I appreciate the comparison. I wonder if for UNT in particular, if going back a couple years would be better, because it seemed like going back 1 year is a good comparison because of COVID. Those numbers are so drastic. Maybe going back a couple years so we can see it compared to a regular running year might be helpful as well.
Sure.
You can, something like that. I agree with that. Would it be simpler? I've gotten where doing board and stuff. It's a lot easier to look at it on a graph than it is just comparing all the numbers, because the numbers get so jumbled. If you could do it on a graph and it shows it a lot easier, you can see the spike, declines in it a lot easier.
Absolutely. Yes, we'll provide that at the next board meeting.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Pearl.
Yes, sir. On-time performance, April 22, Connect 85%, UNT 88%, and Access 95.8%. And then we have information below that for year to date and what those percentages are. We have, as you can see, increased the percentage on-time performance for UNT has went up to 88%. Connect is up to 85%. And for the average obviously has gone up, but it's still a work in progress. We're continuing to monitor that. Our dispatch office has been aggressive in reviewing that, making sure that the buses are out on time and that they're not too early, not too late. So we continue to monitor that, and these numbers are important to us, so we want to make sure that we address those. And as you can see, we've been paying more attention to this, and operations has been, and dispatch has been doing a great job of doing that, as well as the supervisors. So kudos to them for paying attention to this as well.
Maurice, is any of our on-time performance impacted by the vacancies that we have in the operator pool?
At times, our routes go out. So if we are down, and this hasn't happened for some time, once we went to the new bid, I know we've had a lot of staff that have went out and drove routes. To my knowledge, and Sean, if you would corroborate this, or that the routes are serviced, and if they're not, staff does fill in for that.
That is correct. Myself, the road supervisors, the assistant GM, as well as the operations manager. If we are short, we are licensed to operate all vehicles. So therefore the buses do go out. We don't miss runs.
That makes sense to me, and I appreciate the effort that it takes for you to stop what you're doing on your day job to go and drive a bus. What I'd like to understand is if we were just having operators operate bus routes, what is the shortfall with the vacancies that we have? Do all 12 of the current vacancies have to be filled for us to prevent administrative staff from driving routes, or?
Yes. And if we had a full complement of bus operators, that allows for an extra board, which if there are personnel that call off that day, then they would be able to fill in instead of staff filling in. So that's, if we have a full complement of bus operators, then that prevents staff from going out.
So of the vacancies right now, how many of those vacancies are needed in order to have a full extra board?
We have, so during the summer, we have an extra board. How it is set up right now. Coming in August, we will need all 12. So and as far as the history, I don't know what the extra board has been in the past. I know that it's probably been very slim. Just in comparison, the past year or two, typically with this size of an operation, if you have an extra board of 8 to 10, that's a healthy extra board in order to ensure that service goes out and staff does not have to participate in driving.
Okay, thank you.
I know it's been a challenge filling those positions, and I know you are starting to make headway. There was a segment of time there probably 6 months ago where it was very challenging for anyone to get in positions filled, but I think y'all are doing a good job on working through that and going forward. On this item again, I think if you maybe just do a graph on that, it would also help. especially the way your numbers are looking there, they've improved, but it would be able to show us and the public how the numbers are actually working on the graph. To me, they're just easier to look at, I guess you'd say.
Yeah,
Me.
I agree with you, sir. And we'll definitely graph these out and make sure that as appropriate, if there's anything else in the report that we need to graph, we'll make sure that that's graphed. Our overtime year to date is 14.3%. It has went up. There have been some pay increases that have come to fruition with the bus operations side of that. So that has increased this number, and it should start trending down over the next couple of months. Our overtime, obviously during the summer, is going to be a lot better than during spring and fall. So we continue to monitor that as well. So just part of the service metrics that we pay attention to.
Do we have a budget for a certain overtime percentage? Or is 1% overtime outside of the budget?
I would have to defer to Cameron on that. I'm not sure about an overtime budget on what that specific number is.
Cameron, are you there?
Yes, I'm sorry. I was trying to get my thing
all
on
right.
mute. As far as an overtime budget, I think from the past budgets that I have seen, and with this previous budget that we just worked on, it looks like it has been budgeted for a certain percentage. Let me pull that percentage up right quick. And I may have to defer to DCTA, but I want to say maybe 5 to 8% is what I've seen in the past. I know that when I was doing the budget for this year, I don't know what was put in for the operator overtime.
Okay, I think that'd be a good benchmark to put on this, how it's trending towards budget. Because obviously fewer open driver positions could cause other people to pay overtime, work overtime. Any number of vacancies could cause that to happen. So it might be helpful for context.
I agree. I wanted to see it versus budget as well. And I think seeing the salary savings in conjunction with that really helps to paint the full picture, because with the number of vacancies you have, you would expect you're going to have increased overtime. So seeing how that looks from a financial perspective would be good.
And Cameron, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking, I know we're kind of coming out of a subnormal procedures with the COVID operations. And
Yes, sir.
past when we had this, we had a tremendous shortage of personnel, not just drivers, but other personnel. If I'm not mistaken, we were able to offset the overtime with the amount of regular time that we did not pay because we had so many openings. And so it was not an actual increase to the budget. We just had to shift the amount over. Isn't that correct?
That's correct. Yes. Yes, sir. That is correct.
I didn't explain that very well, but I think everybody understands. We didn't have
Absolutely. With the yes, with the vacancies that we did have open, and we had several, it didn't really, and I may not even be explaining this right, it didn't really affect our overtime because of the wages that we are saving with those open positions. It barely touched our overtime. Right.
I mean, I agree that it would be good for us to have a benchmark so we can see how that is adjusted. Like you brought that up. I think it's good.
And just to backtrack just a tad bit, I do have the numbers for the FFCRA. So in 2020, NTMC utilized $23,505.79 for FFCRA pay.
Okay, any other questions on the overtime issue? Okay.
For collisions, April, we had 2 preventable collisions, 2 non-preventable collisions. And as a placeholder here, we'll have the 2022 preventable collisions year to date and non-preventable collisions year to date. So that we'll have that information will be provided at the next board meeting going forward. Just as a comparison, so you can see what those are year to date.
I think that's helpful. I'm also interested in FRA reportable versus non-FRA reportable. FRA reportable being what we have to submit to NTD if someone's injured on the site, if the vehicle's disabled, it has to be towed, whatever. We're using that as a baseline for safety across our modes. And so you may get a phone call on this today from Troy to understand what our year-to-date looks like on FRA versus or FTA versus non-FTA. All right. Yeah. Sorry, railroad versus transit. Got it.
Yes. And we have that information that we can provide that can be available. So we can provide that.
Yeah. And FRA also has reportable incidents too. So I wasn't completely off base.
So you don't have to mess with them.
Yeah, that's right. Well, not all of us do. Some of us do, just not in this forum.
For ticket sales, we had a total of $7,432.15. So this another informational for public transportation, some quick facts, and this came from the 2019 American Public Transportation Association and their website. Granted, it is 2019. There's obviously some differences with what was going on with COVID. But as you can see in here, there's a lot of a wealth of information on public transit, what it does, how it provides for the community. For example, home values were up 24% higher in their public transportation than other areas. And you can see that across all modes of public transportation, fixed route and rail as well. And some of the other facts in here, 45% of Americans have no access to public transportation. So there is another example, every 10 million in operating investment yields 32 million in increased business sales. So there's just wanted to provide this to you, not to read through all of that, but it's just informational. And I think that the board would find that useful. And if there's anything in here that you would like for me to look more into depth and provide additional information, I'd be more than happy to do that for the next board meeting. And with that, we'll move on to our passenger vignettes. And we have 3 passenger vignettes. That's a silent theme. So,
Thanks, will rescue us.
Technology is probably the most job secured industry there is. There's always something. I just got a new iPad, and the newest one, and it's City of Falls, the same, well, no, it's not. It's a lot of different things that you have to do to make it perform like the old one did. But you learn. Profile we're waiting on that. I believe you have another couple of items there, or is that, this is the last time, I guess.
Yes. Yeah,
Well, go ahead, can we do the, well, we wouldn't be able to do that either. I was gonna say the staff spotlight, but that's on.
And guest size.
yeah. it's, and we'll slide that.
Okay, we do apologize for the technical difficulties. We're still working on those. We're going to try to get to the customer vignettes at a later time. But I believe that does conclude your
Yes, that
report?
report.
That does conclude your report.
Yes, sir.
When we go ahead and go to the presentation of NTMC staff spotlight, can we do that?
Yes, sir. And I'll defer to James Salzman, maintenance manager, to discuss his input.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, this is Jason Hassenfleck. He's one of my mechanics, and he's been a real pleasure to work with, and he's very reliable. He knows how to fix buses, and I can put him on a task, and I know that he's going to get it done. He's also very good at helping other departments. Jeff Thomas, our facility manager, really loves Jason as well. Jason, is always willing to help the facility department and knows a lot about it as well, and is always willing to help Jeff out and all the departments out. So we just really wanted to spotlight him and tell him thank you, and let him know that I, as the maintenance manager, and pretty sure everyone here at NTMC really appreciates Jason and all that he does for us. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for pointing out Jason's commitment and work to the organization. I think we all know without the mechanics, we're not going to be running anywhere. So we greatly appreciate, Jason, all the work that you have done for us, and your attitude, from what I understand, your attitude always, no matter what it is, the job will get done. And we greatly appreciate that. And I know that does trickle down to the other team members that you work with. So we greatly appreciate all your work and effort. If there's anything we can ever do to help you, just please reach out and let us know, sir. Anybody else have any comments on that?
I agree, Mr. Chairman. I think you mentioned job security for technology. You can't fake an engine starting or not starting. So thanks to mechanics who can make sure the buses run.
Amen to that, because I'm not good at it. Okay, with that, Counselor, we do not have anything for executive session, correct?
We do not have an executive session scheduled, no.
Okay. Do we have the venues ready yet? If not, I can go on to.
I got it figured out. We can do it now.
Okay.
One of our silent films.
While he's working on that, what I would like to, I'll go ahead and go into the future board meeting, the agenda items. One thing that I had spoken with Mr. Christina earlier is DCTA has several meetings upcoming in the month of June. And by the time we have our next board meeting, then we'll have had 2 or 3 important meetings that I think will outline what their future for NTMC will be. And so with that, I would ask that on the next board meeting, we get kind of a bullet point report and maybe a timeline or something, not a complete thing of all your meetings, because I know it's going to be very extensive, but just kind of a bullet point and timeline item for NTMC, if what DCTA holds for the future of NTMC, so that we can begin to plan for the future on that. Is there anything else anyone else would like to have on that agenda item for next meeting? Particularly.
Yeah, I'd be glad to provide a synopsis of those discussions.
That'd be great. Okay, with that, then we'll go ahead and go to, I think we have the venues ready, so we'll go with that.
I'm sorry.
Can I get your
Here we
name?
go.
Cheryl, I'm Maurice. Cheryl with an S, perfect. And what part of the city do you live in?
I come from North Rudale
Okay.
area.
How often do you ride the fixed route service?
I ride once a day or every other day.
Okay. Is there anything that you would change about the service?
I got used to Route 4 on Loop 288.
So that's what you rode most often was Route 4?
I missed that part of it.
Okay. So what do you have to do? Do you have to do something different now? You're saying that you missed Route 4?
I go over into that area for physical therapy, and I walk either probably a mile one way, and then the other way I come out half a mile.
Okay.
When before it dropped me off right there in front of me.
Gotcha.
So, but I've been exercising.
Okay. All right. Anything else you would like to add?
No, I love the bus and I love the drivers. Those are fun.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time,
Yes,
Cheryl.
sir. Thank
Appreciate
you.
that. Good.
And go, sir.
What's your name?
David.
David, good to meet you. Maurice. So how often do you ride the service?
3 to 4 times a week.
3 to 4 times. All right. What part of the city do you live in?
I live at the Ridge Apartments, like the southwest side.
Okay. Is there anything?
Southeast.
Southeast side of
Yeah.
town? Okay. Is there anything that you would change about the service?
I mean, not really. I mean, it does its job, you know?
Okay. No complaints?
Oh, sorry.
Okay. No, that's great. That's good to hear, and we appreciate your perspective on that. That service is good, so it covers the areas that it needs to for you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, of course.
Good.
And go, sir.
What's your? There you go.
Yes, sir. Go
All
ahead.
right. So, what's your name?
Vinny Ross.
Vinny, good to meet you. I'm Maurice.
Okay.
And we're with DCTA and just have a couple of questions, if you don't mind us asking about you. What part of the city do you live in?
Dallas.
Okay. Yeah, and then how often do you ride our fixed route service?
Sometimes I ride 5 days, sometimes, the system don't run on slack on Sunday, so five days.
About 5 days a week?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything that you would change about the service?
Yeah, just speed it up a little bit, bro. Speed it up.
Speed it up?
Yeah, see, like it was before this COVID stuff took over.
Okay, more speed it up. Do you mean like frequency or more buses? What?
No train. No trains that come in.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay, all right. Anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah.
No? All right. Well, thank you very much, Vinny. Appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I know it was a little bit difficult to hear Vinny sound, but he rides the train in to the DDTC and then catches fixed route from there. So he was wanting more prior to COVID, like more train service and then more fixed route service. So just wanted to increase frequency across both modes of transportation.
Right. Mr. Parker, I appreciate you doing that, getting out to the customers. And do we, to that point, do we have some type of a suggestion box or something for consumers to do, to drop in the buses or at the stations or something like that? So that they could give us their input and we could go forward?
We had, there was DCTA had ambassadors that were riding on the buses, but as far as a steady, consistent drop box, we do not have. It's something that we can look at implementing.
It's just something I think might help the whole organization if they see it from the consumer's point of view, what things are could be changed or things that could be improved, and that might work better for us. Sure. Okay. With that, is there anything else for the good of the deal that's on the agenda? Good for me. With nothing, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Moved to adjourn by Mr. Hayes.
Second.
The second by Mr. Christina. All in favor, say aye. 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 Opposed, please say no. We're adjourned. Thank you. Thank everyone.